Get ready to embrace debate. First Take starts now.
Coming up on the First Take podcast, could we see LeBron James in a Rockets uniform next season? Plus, Tony Romo says the next few years could be his best. Should we believe him? And are Johnny Manziel's off-the-field antics becoming a big deal or not really? We discuss all that and more on the First Take podcast, which starts right now. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to First Take. I'm Carrie Champion, and Skip Bayless is next to me. We're in studio. Good morning.
Hi, Carrie. How are you? I'm just waiting for the onslaught from Stephen A. Smith.
I know. Does he approve of our wardrobe today?
Critique us.
Tell us how awful we are.
Well,
what do we look like today?
Well, first of all, I never, ever approve of Skip Bayless's outfits. I would say it's rare in the day that I do that, but there have been a couple of days when it is clear that Ernestine has put her magic touch on him. And Kerry, this morning, you look stunning.
Thank you, darling. I appreciate
darling.
it. Oh, don't be. I can't have a compliment this morning.
Yes.
Stephen A. is in New York City. Coming up on the show today, the speculation continues. Where will LeBron end up, or will he stay put? Another day, another suggestion. Today we hear Houston Rockets. We will discuss. Plus, it's been a while since we checked in on Johnny Manziel. We've been at the finals, but we hear that the former Browns quarterback hasn't necessarily been doing what he should do.
Not again.
Off the field, his antics. We will talk about that. But first, Dwight Howard and James Harden may be able to create their own big three during free agency. And that is because Dwight says he'd love to work with, well, Carmelo or LeBron James. Daryl Morey, the general manager, says they have an aggressive approach to attract Tier 1 free agents. Here's the quote: "We're always aggressive. That's in our ownership makeup, whether it's adding Clyde Drexler in 1995 to an already championship team, to adding Charles Barkley on a team in 1996 that might have been just as good as their championship teams but came up short, to obviously doing moves for Tracy McGrady, and then James Harden. Our owner has an aggressiveness in his DNA, and obviously I'm at the tip of the spear." All right, so here's the question. Let's talk about the likelihood that LeBron James would actually go to Houston. Stephen A., questions for you.
I think it's slim. Although I think that Dwight Howard is the kind of big man that could really flourish from the presence of LeBron James, and I thought that he really showed up in that first round series against Portland to make a good showing for himself, because he was outmanned in that post against Portland and undersized to some degree, believe it or not. He still played big, and I give him a lot of credit for that, and I think that he would benefit from LeBron James tremendously, as well as LeBron James. James Harden is a superstar offensively as far as I'm concerned. He is a complete no-show defensively. To watch James Harden play defense is one of the more embarrassing things to witness. This man makes little to no effort to play defense most of the time, and it's true. And if he has a problem with it, because he tends to have a problem with anything that I say these days, because he's incredibly sensitive, all he needs to do is go and watch tape of himself, and it will speak for itself. All I'm doing is reporting what everybody that watches basketball knows. James Harden is big time offensively. He's an all-star. He's a superstar in the making. Defensively, he's a no-show, period. When you look at it from that perspective, however, I think that because of Houston's system, and you certainly don't want to do anything to underestimate Daryl Morey. You know, you've got Chandler Parsons available to you. Omar Sheik wanted to be out there before even last season began, because he felt that he should have been that big man, that preeminent presence in the front in the front court. And then, of course, Jeremy Lin has not lived up to snuff, and he's due a huge payday in his third season in Houston that they don't want to give up. So in order to do that, first, LeBron James would have to be willing to come there, and then in all likelihood, somebody would have to be willing to take that baggage off of Houston's roster. And I'm certainly not qualifying Parsons as baggage, but you would have to get rid of some of those guys, and I don't know if they would be successful in their venture to do so. So I would say it's a long shot, to be kind. Plus, that doesn't appear to be one of LeBron James' preferences. As I've said before, Miami and Cleveland in that order are at the top of that list, even though there are some teams that can get into the mix, because LeBron is all about business. It's about Miami and Cleveland. Those are the two teams that have considerable edge.
Okay, I said yesterday I thought that LeBron James would be foolish to leave Miami. But I must admit to you when I read this USA Today story today, as in earlier this morning, I had one of those eureka moments where I thought, wow, if LeBron is going to go anywhere, it would be this where. Because we've had Daryl Morey on the show, Stephen A. As you know, he is a can-do guy who gets things done when you least expect it. How did he pull off the James Harden deal? I still don't get it. I have no idea why Oklahoma City traded James Harden. That's a whole other issue. But Daryl Morey just happened to be at the right place at the right time to let James Harden fall right into his lap, right out of heaven. And Daryl Morey did land Dwight Howard. I got to give him that. And he said in this story that signing Dwight Howard showed the rest of the league that Houston is now a Tier 1 destination. I'm buying that. So I'm thinking that under this owner, and you read that great quote, the owner has
done some great things.
Yeah, he's got that aggressiveness in his DNA, sure. And I'm the tip of the spear. Yeah. That's true. So I look back at Les Alexander's tenure. 95, they went out and got Clyde Drexler. 96, Charles Barkley. 98, Scottie Pippen. 04, Tracy McGrady. 14, could it be either LeBron or Carmelo? And I remind you, Stephen A., it was several years ago, but in this story it was pointed out that Melo was once quoted as saying the one star that Melo would love to play with, and we know he would like to play with LeBron, but it's Dwight Howard. I think a lot of guys would like to play with Dwight to give them that post presence as a true center. I'm not the biggest Dwight fan, as you know, but still, I could see where that would raise the eyebrows of both LeBron and Carmelo if they started thinking, wow, I could play with Dwight. In LeBron's case, he could play point forward because I think James Harden is a little better off the ball, not as the pure point guard. I hear you about playing defense, but James Harden has guts. I like his guts. I like his big game toughness. You know, I think you agree with that part, right?
No, without question, man, and which is why I get disgusted at him being so damn sensitive. The dude is a big-time player.
Yep.
He's got a lot of heart. He's not scared. I want the ball in his hands. He's certainly capable of making big-time shots. I know this about him. But, Skip, I'm not talking about somebody who can't play defense like he can't defend. I'm talking about somebody who won't defend.
Yep.
I'm talking about somebody who turns his back to offensive players, let them run around. He's sitting there looking at them where they at because he turned his back and didn't pay any attention.
Yep.
I'm talking about a guy that on far too many occasions has completely fallen asleep on defense. That is not about skill. I would never be as sacrilegious as to question the skill of James Harden. But when it comes to defense, there is no doubt that you can question the effort. And I don't care what anybody says. I have factual tapes to prove exactly what I'm saying about James Harden.
In your library, right?
You know that. Come on, Skip. You know me. You know I go home on the weekends. If I'm not TiVoing, if I'm not watching TiVo episodes of General Hospital or Scandal or 24, I'm watching tape. I'm watching,
or the Netherlands playing the World Cup, right?
Well, no, it's that I tape basketball games and I go back and I watch just like the scout does.
Yeah.
That's what I do. And I'm telling you, James Harden plays no defense. He doesn't. The effort is not there.
What's funny, when Oklahoma City used to try to go at the Lakers in the postseason, you know, they'd try to fight and scratch with them. James Harden would take Kobe. I know, and he would play the heck out of him. So I don't know what happened. Okay, I'm with you.
Again, we're not talking about skill. We're talking about effort.
Okay, so bottom line here is, what has occurred to me is, I would bet, if I were a betting man, we're about to talk about if I were a betting man with Tony Romo, right? But if I were a betting man, I would bet that Daryl Morey's going to land either LeBron or Carmelo. That's just a gut feeling because it's set up for that.
Well, I think it's a shot that he could land Carmelo, but more so than LeBron. I'm not ruling anything out with Houston. Please don't get me wrong, because they are a Tier 1 destination as far as I'm concerned. Remember, the other thing is that they're in Texas. That's no state income tax.
Bingo.
I mean, we definitely like that. And Houston is a big time city. I know. I love Houston. I wouldn't mind being in Houston in June. Let me be clear.
Yeah.
But let me tell you something right now. With that being said, you still have to facilitate a trade, and somebody has to be willing to make a deal with you in order for you to acquire those players. And that's where it gets touchy, because who's going to be interested in helping Miami and who's going to be interested in helping the New York Knicks? That's the challenge.
Okay, so Jeremy Lin, and you were very critical of the deal that they gave Jeremy. What was it? 3 years, $25 million?
$25 million,
okay,
balloon payment of $15 million third year. Yeah.
So next year, that's that poison pill deal that they talk about.
Exactly.
If Jeremy Lin is traded, the next team would owe him $15 million. If Asik is traded, the next team would owe him $15 million. That's why it will be difficult. But again,
to make it happen.
Yeah, real difficult. Okay. But Daryl Morey seems to be able to pull these things off when least expected. So I wouldn't bet against him.
Forgive my apprehension, but a show of hands to anybody that believes the combination of Jeremy Lin and Omar Asik is worth $30 million.
Oh, boy.
And that's not even including the luxury tax, assuming what team they go to.
You know,
I mean, are you kidding me? Really?
Half of that I would buy, because I think Asik is pretty good. I think he might be worth $15 million for a team that was deficient in the post. Yeah.
All I'm saying to you is that the combination of those two are not going to propel you to new heights.
All right. Stephen A. says that LeBron's chances of going to Houston are slim. He says Miami and Cleveland in that order. While Skip, you had a eureka moment.
I did.
Why not?
Why not?
To the NFL we go. Jared Bell of USA Today Sports writes from minicamp that Romo is more than ready to start the season. Romo, wearing a different jersey, tried to sneak in the 7-on-7 drills. Clearly not acceptable and quickly stopped by Garrett. It was a bit of a joke, but he says he's ready. He's feeling really good. On his future, he says this: if I were a betting man, I'd be betting that my best years will be over these next 3 or 4 years. I've said before, I think I'll play another 5 or 6 years. I'm not taking a chance by saying that. I think that's the most likely situation. Tony Romo with some swagger, if he were a betting man.
Yeah.
Bayless, are you buying what he's selling?
Champion.
Yes.
It's only June. Do I have to talk about Tony Romo in June? You're going to force me to?
I am forcing you.
Okay.
Oh, please, don't act like somebody's forcing you. You know you wanted to talk about this. He loves it. Stop it.
I hate it. Stephen A. Smith. Look, here we go again. If we are talking strictly about personal performance, individual statistics, if I were a betting man, I would bet that Tony Romo would be a fantasy football superstar over the next 3 or 4 years. I have no doubt about that. Couple of stats for you before we get into the Tony Romo trap that this propels you into. Since that merger, AFL, NFL in 1970, only 6 quarterbacks have passed for more yards in their 3rd through 10th seasons than Tony Romo. Those 6 are Peyton, Phillip Rivers, Marino, Breeze, Favre, and Eli. It's pretty elite company, speaking of Eli. Right?
I'm so touched.
Okay, I'm so touched too. Last 3 years, Tony Romo, 90 touchdown passes to only 39 interceptions. You could say that 39 is fairly high, but still 90 to 39. And in those 3 years, he's had 2 years of 31 to 10, 31 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. That's pretty great. But the Tony Romo trap. 8-8, 8-8, 8-8. How many times do I have to say 8-8? And as you well know, and you continue to remind me, so I'm going to remind you first before you beat me to the punch, Tony Romo remains 1-3 in the postseason. He has 1 solitary playoff win in his tenure as starting quarterback, and that was at home at Jerry World over Donovan McNabb in his final game as a Philadelphia Eagle. Not all that impressive. So, if Tony Romo had said yesterday, feeling his oats as he comes back from back surgery, hey, in the next 3 or 4 years, I would bet on me to win a Super Bowl, I'd say, way to go, Tony. That's what I want to hear. He didn't say that.
He didn't say that.
He said he was going to have good years, statistically. Great. So, as a Cowboy fan, I'm going to reiterate to you. Tony Romo has proven to me, and I'm done with him, that he will break your heart in the biggest moments. See 51-48. Peyton over Tony Romo. Remember that one last year, Stephen A? Romo throws for what? Was a fuck bless you. You're sneezing at Tony Romo again. 500 yards that he throws for against Peyton Manning, and then right on schedule, end of game, No, Tony, no. So, bottom line, I'm going to bet on this. If I'm a betting man, I say Tony Romo will start by the time he's finished, he will start at 12 straight years for the Dallas Cowboys with 0 Super Bowl victories. That's what I'm going to bet on. The floor is yours.
That's not much of a bet.
I know, but you know, this is the Dallas Cowboys we're talking about now.
All right.
Well, I mean, listen, you highlighted it. I can't. Here's how sad the Dallas Cowboys are. I can't even make fun of them anymore. I mean, what is there for me to say? I mean, like you pointed out, he talked about what he's going to do as opposed to what the team is going to accomplish. He's definitely riding on his stats because he knows he doesn't truly believe in this team. This team is a shell of itself. Sean Lee is out.
Yep.
DeMarcus Ware is gone, even though I know you felt that, you know, he was approaching his last days.
Yep.
You know, they've got issues in their secondary. They've got issues defensively altogether. And what are you hearing coming out of Dallas Cowboys camp? They've got a new strength and conditioning program.
Wow.
They've changed their diet.
Wow.
Their offensive coordinator wants to speed up the play a little bit. They're too slow at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
And all of this other stuff. And Tony Romo, like, he's ready to go. This dude, listen, this is football. All it takes is one hit to remind him that he ain't as ready as he thinks he is.
That's true.
And then you've got and this is how bad it is. You got a backup, all right, and Kyle Orton, who doesn't even show up, doesn't want to play, all right? And they're talking about, this is the thing that had me laughing. The man isn't showing up, Skip, because he's contemplating retirement.
He is.
And they're talking about him like, we're going to punish you if you retire. I mean, now that was funny, okay? Because it's like, oh my goodness, don't you retire on us.
Well,
we need you.
Well, that's the
because
point.
We can't have Brandon. We can't have. We can't have Brandon. We can't have Brandon Weeding taking all the snaps and training camp. I mean, it's just hilarious. And you know what? And the timing of it couldn't be worse. Why? Because we were just in San Antonio. Why, if you look at their fan base, how supportive that they are, nobody ever thinks about San Antonio having a football team. You know why? Because the town is filled with Dallas Cowboy fans. They live, eat, and breathe the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
So after they win their 5th championship and the world is celebrating the greatness of the San Antonio Spurs, here come the Dallas Cowboys to rain on their parade by bringing this kind of attention to their own ineptitude. Knowing that the fan base down there has got something to celebrate, you couldn't even have the decency to be quiet, to just shut up and let them enjoy themselves until the parade on the Riverwalk took place. Oh, no, you got to sit there and talk now. These are the Dallas Cowboys,
and by the way,
you can't make it up.
Did you notice?
Can't make it up.
Speaking of can't make it up, Jason Garrett is now using the Spurs championship as motivation for the Cowboys. We need to do it the way the Spurs did it.
Yeah.
What do these two teams have in common except that they share the same state? Seriously.
Well, you're not only right about that. Jason Garrett left out a key component in all of this. The San Antonio Spurs actually have the personnel to be successful.
Oh.
The Dallas Cowboys do not.
Yeah.
The San Antonio Spurs actually have leadership from up top to be as successful as they are.
Thank you.
The Dallas Cowboys do not.
And by the way, Stephen A., you know Peter Holt because you have a personal relationship with him and you cover the NBA. I think a whole lot of fans just found out who Peter Holt was during the finals. Because you might have seen him a little bit on TV here and there, but not very much.
Don't know much.
Because all year long, I know, you just don't see him. So he is the un-Jerry Jones, right?
Right.
And somehow they've won 5
games.
championships. I know.
He's at the games. He's at the games. His face is there. Here's the difference between Holt and Jerry Jones. When Holt is there enjoying the game. He doesn't try to hype his team because he doesn't have to.
Okay. So here's the bottom line to this question. I guarantee you, I will bet on this. Next year, the Dallas Cowboys will have one of the top offenses in the National Football League. Romo will put up big numbers. Des Bryant will put up big numbers. DeMarco will put up pretty big numbers. Jason Witten will put up pretty big numbers. And they will be lucky to go 8. I can't even see 8-8. Again, they're decimated on defense without Sean Lee. What are they going to? Come on, can they win 6 games next year? Maybe. I might give them 6 games, but that's what we're talking about here. Jerry's going to love it because the fans will enjoy watching the Cowboys score. They'll move the football.
Right.
They will electrify you with their offense, and then what? They will lose the football game 51-48.
And they will break your heart, will they not? What I'm able to gather from this debate is that Garrett is no Popovich. Is that correct?
I would say that's the understatement of the history of the show.
The history of the show. Gentlemen.
I'm shocked you even mentioned their names in the same sentence.
It's not even fair. On Tuesday, as Johnny Manziel agreed to terms on a contract with the Cleveland Browns, there was video of him posted to Instagram from this weekend celebrating of sorts, holding a stack of money, pretending it was a cell phone. We don't know the exact circumstances and the context of the video. Reportedly, the video was taken this weekend in Houston, but no one from the Manziel camp has confirmed that.
The thing I'm most worried about is what you're kind of saying off the field. And some people say, you can work hard, play hard. But I think my biggest issue with it is when you're drafted in the first round, you're the face of the franchise. And when you've got a video that comes out like that, I understand he's trying to have a good time and live his life off the field. But there's a little kid watching that. And now he's looking up to him as a role model. I just don't think it's right. I don't think it's respectful to the other veteran players, too, who right now are probably taking care of their bodies, trying to prepare to go into a winning season right now instead of doing things like that off the field.
That was former Browns quarterback Brady Quinn weighing in. Here's the question. It's just a video, having some fun. Big deal or no big deal, Stephen A?
It's a big deal. I'll tell you that I don't particularly care to hear from Brady Quinn because he certainly had his opportunities to perform on the next level. And I'm not trying to disrespect him, but, his statements were strong considering his level of production in his NFL career. But, again, I'm not knocking him because he's not wrong from this perspective. I'm becoming concerned about Johnny Manziel. I saw him at the NBA Finals. I'm a fan of his. I root for him. I certainly think that he's been dealt a bad hand in terms of some of the things that have been thrown in his direction and the way he's been excoriated in the public eye from time to time. But at the same time, even though I'm not interested in hearing about kids are watching because I get tired of that being thrown out and sometimes that could be overblown, how about this notion? You're a professional athlete right now with something to prove. You don't need to be going out there. I don't look at Johnny Manziel as somebody who's partying. To me, that's entirely different than somebody who seems to wear this attitude on his sleeve that I'm going to buck the system and do what I want to do, when and how I want to do it. That as long as I play and show up to work on time, y'all get out my face. It doesn't quite work that way on the professional level, particularly when it comes to the National Football League. Now, I don't want to be hypocritical here because I have been on the record in the past saying I detest how the NFL feels they should have ownership over people's lives that are playing in the league. I have a problem with that. I go the route of Kerry Williams of the Philadelphia Eagles when they tried to make a big deal about him not showing up to voluntary workouts last year. But there is a difference between a consummate professional who was a Super Bowl champion, who's about handling his business, saying that the word voluntary is there for a reason and it shouldn't be an issue. And to Johnny Manziel, who is essentially finding himself in situations where there's public evidence of his maverick kind of mentality. It's the kind of thing that I think ultimately would be count against him. And even though he's quick to say they're going to come at him like that anyway, they've been coming at him like that anyway, you can't sit there in the same breath acting this way and call LeBron James somebody you idolize and look up to and you receive counsel from. Because I got news for you. LeBron James is the greatest player in the world with 4 MVPs and 2 rings. And we've never seen pictures of him like we've seen of Johnny Manziel.
Yep.
And I think that's something that Johnny Manziel needs to take notice of. LeBron James is incredibly protective and mindful of his appearance, how he conducts himself, how he comes across. And I think Johnny Manziel, even though he's young, I think those brothers need to talk to him. Maverick and Rich and all of those boys, they need to talk to him about, look, there's something to be said about how you're presenting yourself. You don't need to do that.
That is a great point about LeBron James, and I'm glad you made it. You also had a good point to start off about Brady Quinn. Brady Quinn is a really good guy. He was a really good teammate. He really struggled to be a successful starting quarterback in this league, so we have to temper what he says in that perspective. Now, before I answer this question, this is just for Johnny. Johnny, you need to start asking yourself, who are your true friends? Would a true friend post that video on his Instagram? Seriously. Is that a fair question?
No, yeah.
Would a true friend post that? Well, where did that get Johnny or the true friend? They were having a little private gathering. How many superstars in the history of, heck, I'll even throw LeBron in this. I'm sure at some victory celebration party, LeBron's gotten a little bit crazy. Would he have loved that video to be posted on somebody's Instagram? Couldn't it be humiliating?
Skip.
Go ahead.
Skip, real quick, let me interject. If somebody had done that to LeBron James, that guy would be found out within 24 hours and completely removed and ostracized from their inner circle. It would be instant. Sure. And Kobe, too.
Kobe, yes.
Kobe, too. Yeah. I'm sure there's be a lot of superstars.
Kobe might do something to the dude. Kobe might do something to the dude.
Come up missing? He might be missing? No.
He might be missing. You know?
All right, let's stay serious again here.
Okay.
Look, I love Johnny Manziel. Clearly, I want him to do great in the National Football League because I've predicted he will be great. I have no doubt he can play at a star quality level. You okay?
Yeah, sorry.
At a star quality level in the National Football League. Stephen A., I have absolutely no problem with his Johnny being Johnny partying behavior. It's part of his psyche. It's what sort of propels him. It's the edge that he has on the field that he displays, not to a fault, but he displays it off the field. Now, very seriously, I've said this before on the show. What I do have big concern about is Johnny and alcohol. I do not know the circumstance of this video, as Kerry just pointed out. But in it, I can't help but say, it looks like Johnny might have had a couple drinks. And do I need to reiterate, people from his inner circle have told me they're a little concerned about Johnny and alcohol. His incidents in the past seem to have been alcohol-fueled. The fight he got into in his first year at Texas A&M that had him, threw him into jail for a night. Going to the fraternity parties at the University of Texas and risking life and limb there. I'm sure he'd had a couple of drinks. I have reported that I was told the Houston Texans cooled on him before the draft because they asked him to lay low, and he wound up at the Masters, albeit with his father and his uncle, but it looked like he had a few too many at the Masters, and it was a little embarrassing, and the Texans didn't like it. Wright Thompson wrote about Johnny and alcohol in his great ESPN The Magazine piece. It just concerns me that again and again, it looks like Johnny has some issues with alcohol. Again, I have it in my family background, and I'm the first to admit maybe I overreact to this. But Stephen A., do you think it's okay for me to at least voice my concern about this publicly?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Yes, I do, because I think it's something that Johnny has to be mindful of. First of all, if you're a professional athlete, I don't know one professional athlete that could legitimately look anybody in the face and says alcohol helps them perform better, it keeps them in peak condition, etc., etc. No, it's a vice that you don't mind as long as you don't use in excess because it stimulates you to some degree. But the fact of the matter is it does nothing to help you as a professional athlete. It does nothing. So if it's one thing to do it, it's another thing to be unapologetic with your use of it.
Yep.
Not to mention the fact that you've given the impression that you have no intent on simmering down, changing, or whatever the case may be. And so again, I'm a fan of Johnny Manziel's. I like him a lot. I root for him. I will continue to do so. But at the same time, he does need to chill.
Yep.
He really, really does. Because I got news for him. I could sit there and say he made it because getting to the NFL is an incredible accomplishment in and of itself. But according to Johnny Football, making it ain't, I mean, that was a given. Being a star on the next level is what his goal is what your belief for him, Skip, is. And I don't see how anything that he does supports him ultimately accomplishing that goal. And if it doesn't support it, then what you need to do is step back and make the necessary sacrifices to be great. Greatness is, I mean, part of it is God-given.
Yep.
The other part of it is you appreciating what God gave you and making sure that you put forth the necessary effort to make sure you maximize that potential.
I am so with you on this one, and I just hope that our discussion reaches Johnny's ears. I know he watches the show. And, Johnny, it's all constructive criticism. We are both pulling for you.
The Browns' training camp opens up July 25th. Johnny just signed a 4-year deal with the Browns worth over $8 million. According to our Adam Schefter, Vernon Davis said a few days ago he would attend camp, but apparently changed his mind. He was not present at camp on Tuesday. Davis wants a new contract, and he, along with offensive lineman Alex Boone, did not attend. Jim Harbaugh on the No Show, quote, disappointed in the decision for them not to be here. There was a voluntary segment to the offseason, and we appreciate those other guys volunteering to make the team better. Now it's mandatory, and I wish they could have. This is not the decision I envision being the 49er way. Davis has 2 years left on a 5-year, $37 million deal. We're putting Vernon Davis on the hook. The question is, whose side are you on? We welcome in our NFL analyst, Jerome Bettis. I call him the bus.
The bus is back.
The bus is back.
Yeah.
We missed you.
Thank you.
You were correct about the Spurs, huh? Are
Big
you also
boy!
an NBA analyst?
I said I was disappointed in Miami. I was actually rooting for Miami, but I was impressed at how the Spurs dismantled.
Dismantled.
I was impressed by that, but I was very disappointed in how the Heat showed.
He just used the word dismantled.
The bus did. That's appropriate, is it not?
Well, I know, but I'm just shocked that we're saying that the Spurs dismantled the Miami Heat, which they did.
Uh-oh. And he loves every moment of it. Whose side are you on?
Actually, I'm mixed. I'm on Vernon Davis's side in the sense that I understand you have a short window. You've got to take advantage of your opportunities. When you're playing above what they're paying you, there should be a change. But I'm also of the mindset that you do it when there's 1 year left on your contract, not when there's 2 years left on the contract. So, it's a situation where Vernon Davis, I understand what he's thinking, but I don't think right now is the right thing to do. With 2 years left, I probably would have gone to the mini camp and showed my face and showed the goodwill so that they can then go upstairs and say, okay, what do we do in this circumstance?
Stephen A., your take. Whose side are you on?
Normally, I would never be on a player's side from the standpoint that you sign a contract, you honor it. But all of that goes out the window when it comes to the National Football League because they do it to players all the time. You sign contracts, you give signing bonuses or whatever, you'll cut them, you'll waive them, you'll find a reason to get rid of them. Nobody does that better than the NFL. And so when you're a player, particularly considering how violent the sport is, you really, really do have to strike when the iron is hot and go for yours and do what you can to make the money that you believe you justifiably earned. In the case of Vernon Davis, however, even though I'm of that mindset and I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and agree with him, at the same time, I do look at what Jerome Bettis just said in terms of him having 2 years left. You could have at least showed your face to a mandatory mini camp in June. It's not August where you got to play in preseason games. It's not the start of, a full throttle training camp. It's none of that. It's a mini camp. Go there for a few days, show your face, show that this is a place where you want to be. Not just because you want to be there, but because despite the fact that nothing is more important than you, something just as important as you is going on. The San Francisco 49ers are no joke. These guys are legitimate Super Bowl title contenders. They have been to 3 straight NFC championship games. They've gone to a Super Bowl. They have been knocking and knocking and knocking on the door. Their defense is still elite. Offensively, you've got a couple of running backs. Colin Kaepernick's going to have to show up and do what they're paying him now to do. But if you're Vernon Davis, while wanting your money, you also have to understand that there's something that's going on here that's special and it's big, and you have to make sure that you're not that big of a distraction in that regard. Showing your face at the minicamp would not have been that big of a deal. You didn't have to practice, but you could have at least showed your face.
Okay, both you guys make good points, and I think you're kind of on the fence on the issue. Let me just say, my bottom line is I am not on Vernon Davis's side here. While I am usually, especially when it comes to the NFL, all about players getting paid as quickly and as much as they can get paid because of just how damaging this game is. But timing is everything, and his timing is all wrong to me. Let's look back. 2010, he signs the biggest tight end contract in the National Football League. And in 11 and 12, he did not make the Pro Bowl. Last year, 13, he did make the Pro Bowl, and it was only his second in 8 years. So we're not talking about superstar here. And then in last year's playoffs, we're talking about timing here.
Yes.
There wasn't much Vernon Davis sighting going on. The game in Green Bay. Well, he got 2 for 37 at Green Bay. At Carolina, 1 catch for 1 yard. Again, he might have been triple teamed for all I know, but 1 catch for 1 yard. And then at Seattle, 2 catches for 16 yards. Grand total, 5 catches for 54 yards with 2 touchdowns in 3 playoff games. Not superstar numbers that you put up. So timing is everything. Not here. He's got no timing. Well, what leg does he have to stand on to miss an OTA or minicamp? I don't get it. I don't really know what would provoke him now with 2 years left to say, I'm underpaid. Yeah. Really? For what?
Well, where the numbers are going to go with Jimmy Graham, also and with Gronk, you understand that Gronkowski in New England, you understand that your numbers are far lower than the elite tight ends in the game. Also, the fact that if I'm Vernon Davis, I'm 28 years old. I only have maybe 2 to 3 years of a high-level playing ability left in the NFL, so I've got to strike while the iron's hot. Now, that's my argument for. The argument against, obviously, is the 2 years, and I say that because I held out as well. Okay, so I understand this process.
With what?
With 1 year. With 1 year to go.
How old were you?
I was young. I was with the Rams. It was my third year. It was my third year in the NFL. We had talked about a deal. It never materialized, and so I felt that that's what I needed to do.
Outplayed your rookie deal?
Absolutely.
Okay.
2 years, 2 Pro Bowls.
It was justified.
It was justified, and so it was one of those situations that I felt I needed to make a stand. And I do understand Vernon Davis needing to make a stand, but you need to understand everything, the dynamics. There's one other piece of this maybe that Vernon Davis is thinking about in the sense that Kaepernick just got paid. There's probably going to be a couple other guys get paid. He said, hey, I want to make sure I get my piece before it's all gone.
Crabtree is coming up this year.
Right.
Okay, but here's the bottom line question again. Has Vernon Davis outplayed his contract? Has he outperformed it? No.
5 year, 30. No, was it 37 million?
Yeah.
So
no,
he got 23 guaranteed.
Yeah,
I can't say that he has. If he comes out this year and has another really good season, then I say yes, it's time to renegotiate the contract. I've got maybe 2 good years left. I need to be paid what I'm worth.
So we are all in that mode of show us, right?
The one point that y'all might be missing about Vernon Davis, and this is almost blasphemous to me to say, and I must admit that because the man did have 52 receptions for 850 yards, with us knowing that Colin Kaepernick still has room for improvement as a quarterback, even though we're all happy he got his money because he's a dual threat and he deserved it. Vernon Davis may not be scared of just getting hurt. He might be scared of getting shut down. Like you said, Skip, 2 catches for 37 yards against Green Bay, 1 catch against Carolina, all right? And then after that, 2 catches for 16 yards against Seattle. Well, Green Bay's better. All right? Carolina is on the map now.
Yep.
And Seattle ain't going anywhere. And by the way, Arizona's coming. So it's just possible that he wants to strike right now because there's some question as to whether or not he's going to perform moving forward. Now, I don't mean to put him out on Front Street like that, but like you said, Skip, 5 receptions for 54 yards in the span of 3 playoff games, and you talk about a contract extension. I don't blame him for trying to go for his money because Jimmy Graham is trying to get his too. I get that. I get that. But when you refuse to even show up to minicamp, you are now bringing unnecessary attention to yourself because it's because he didn't show up yesterday that we're sitting here and talking about this now. Had he showed up, Skip, we might not even be talking about it. If he just didn't participate, but he showed his face and he was looking to have his contract redone, I don't know if any of us are sitting here today going like this. Well, Vernon Davis had 5 receptions for 54 yards over the course of 3 games. It's because he refused to even participate and show his face that we're like, wait a minute, what's up with you, bro? I mean, shoot, some could argue you didn't show up in Seattle in the NFC Championship game.
So, you expect him to hold out of training camp?
I absolutely. Now the line is drawn in the sand.
Okay, so he can't go back.
He has to. And when you look back, there's another case very similar to this, Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah.
He decided to come into camp. He didn't work out. You see him with his hoodie on, not saying anything. Everybody understands that there's a contract issue. He wants to get paid. So there is the other side of the coin as well.
One quick note, Skip. The other day, man, we were at the finals, and you know we had one. We were never off, but in sometime in the afternoon, I think it was a Saturday afternoon. I forgot what day it was. I'm clicking on the TV. And I turned to CNBC because, you know, I got to monitor the money. You understand what I'm saying? I got to monitor the money, right?
Yeah, you got to take care of your cash.
Who's there in the streets on Wall Street, Skip? It's Vernon Davis. Talking with a bunch of financial dudes about dollars and cents and spend. And so in other words, he's about his money.
Yeah.
But
Good point.
you've got to be about performance, too.
Yeah. All right. Well, maybe they told him to hold out.
Well, if you're hanging with the Wall Street guys,
they may have said
he's got Wall Street on his mind.
And he's also sold, I think he sold 10% of his future earnings as well. So he's on the cutting edge of the financing.
I'm not mad at him.
No,
I respect it. He just has to perform, Vernon. Vernon, you got a ball.
Jerome,
you got a ball.
We always appreciate you enlightening us. You're welcome back anytime.
Thank you.
Lucy Lee, a 6th grader from California, has just become the youngest qualifier in the history of the U.S. Women's Open. She played 9 holes of practice Tuesday and is looking forward to play on the same course where Martin Keimer won the U.S. Open title. Let's listen to her.
Perfect week. I just want to go out there and have fun and play the best I can. And I really don't care about the outcome. It's just I want to have fun. Coolest moment, I guess when I met Webb Simpson Thursday.
First of all, can your dad beat you?
No. It's awesome, right? I mean, Pinehurst and Augusta National in like 2 months. I mean, that's just amazing. It's mind-blowing for me.
Clearly her dad cannot beat her. Meanwhile, Stacey Lewis, #1 ranked women's golfer, says not so fast, quote, "I'm not a big fan of it," she qualified. So we can't say anything about that, but I like to see kids be successful at every level before they come out here. I just like to see kids learn how to win before they come out here and get beat up. When I find out she qualified, I said, well, where does she go from here? You qualify for an Open at 11. What do you do next? If it was my kid, I wouldn't let her play in the U.S. Open qualifier at 11. But that is just me. She was adorable, was she not?
Wow.
Giggling and sweet, clearly in the 6th grade. We asked this question, how young is too young in this circumstance? Skip Bayless, for you.
First of all, allow me to say, Stephen A., as Carrie was reading the setup to this, I felt like I was in a Saturday Night Live sketch, like this can't be happening. It's impossible. We just heard Lucy say it's mind-boggling to her that she gets to meet Webb Simpson It's mind-boggling to me what she has accomplished at 11 years of age. I think we all sit back and think about what we were and were not at age 11, and you say, this is impossible. An 11-year-old girl qualified. She won her qualifying by 7 shots for the United States Women's Open. Can't happen, but it did. And you want to know the truth? I have absolutely no problem with it whatsoever. This is a one-shot deal. I'm hoping that her parents have enough perspective on this to let her go back and continue to be a kid that she is and go right on up the ladder and play her high school golf and her junior golf championships around the country. Don't push her the way Michelle Wee's parents pushed her, to me, over the brink into playing men's tournaments, PGA tournaments at, what was she, 14? It was a joke to me. They were using and abusing her psychologically. And it sounds to me like Michelle Wee is only now recovering from all that. What is she, 25 now? Seems like she's 38 after all she's been through. Yeah. But that was sad to me. You and I used to talk about it when we used to do old school, new school, back and forth about Michelle Wee. In this case, this is happy. This kid's happy. This kid's having fun. This kid, even though she giggles like an 11-year-old, I think she's wise way beyond her years. I'm reading that she's being homeschooled through an online Stanford University program.
Why not?
Wow. And she had some great quotes in USA Today about, I like golf because it's different from other sports. Anybody can play it if you're tall or short, fast or slow. Well, this is, again, these are wise quotes from 11. I couldn't have thought of that when I was 11. Heck, I hadn't even started playing golf. And as you know, Stephen A., golf is so hard to play to start with. And they're saying she hits at 230 off the tee. And then she said, well, when my adrenaline kicks in, I'm longer than that during tournaments. She is? That's impossible at age 11, but it's happening. Mm-hmm. So I applaud her, and I just hope she has a blast this weekend at Pinehurst.
Well, first order of business is to congratulate Lucy Lee and just to acknowledge how phenomenal she is, what an exception she is, what an exceptional individual she is as a child, to be educated, clearly an incredibly intelligent young girl, and very, very gifted. And no matter what anybody thinks, nobody is pointing the finger at her. Let's be clear about that. All she's doing is being a kid playing golf, and she just happens to be pretty darn good at it, and she deserves our praise for that. But I'm of the mindset, I'm going to agree. Who was that? Kerry, Stacey Lewis, I believe that was.
That was Stacey Lewis. Yeah.
I'm not, Skip, you've often joked that, you know, sometimes I act older than you. You know that I'm old. That's right. I am old school, and I'm a disciplinarian, and I believe in structure, and I believe that there's a certain way to do things, and there's a certain time to do things. And when it comes to children, I'm incredibly protective. And just because you're brilliant and you're gifted doesn't mean that you can't be tainted, sullied, or dare I say sabotaged, whether it be by parents or by the media, and what the public spotlight can do to a child. I remember, Skip, when I was in junior high school at PS 192 in New York, and there was a teacher by the name of Mr. Caravan. And I'll never forget what he said to me. And obviously that was a long time ago, so for me to bring it up, you know it must have stayed with me. Everybody was praising Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson is it. Michael Jackson is this. Michael Jackson is that. And one day, the teacher looked at us, my 7th grade teacher, Mr. Caravan, and he said, quote, "It's sad what they've done to him." And what he was alluding to was, this man has all the gifts, and he's there to entertain the world. But because of the spotlight that was thrown on him as a human being, there's only but so much you can take. And it doesn't matter who you are, it breaks us all. This is what happens to you. It doesn't matter that she's as gifted as she is. It doesn't matter that she has the ability to compete with pros. It doesn't matter if she wins in terms of her abilities as a golfer. What matters is the attention she's going to draw because of it and what it's going to turn people around her into, whether it's her family, her friends, her inner circle, the media, or whatever. And I don't care what anybody says, that's never good. Not for an 11-year-old, not for a teenager. You're going to strip something incredibly pivotal away from them in their lives, and it is something they'll never get back. So what we have to ask ourselves is this question: is your competing in the U.S. Open worth it? My answer would be, for an 11-year-old, no, it is not. Okay. So I am of that mindset. Again, I'm not going to knock her for competing in it. I just have the problem with the fact that we're all celebrating it because that's a bad road that we're going to take her down.
So you're taking the stance that as a society we tend to devour our young. We want too much too soon.
Yes.
I get that in the big picture. But clearly, when we've seen what a LeBron did at age 18, what a Kobe did at age 18, every once in a while somebody comes along who can handle it at a premature age. And maybe this is the exception to your rule.
Yeah. But Skip, you had a good perspective, though.
My problem with Kerry, my problem is this. People they're quick to bring up basketball players. Mm-hmm. Well, you know what? You have company. There was a Kobe before that. You see what I'm saying? There were others in the league that's around your age. You got cats in the streets of New York, Chicago, and everywhere else at that age that LeBron James was balling. So what I'm trying to say is that even though there was some growing pains that he had to go through, he had company. Who's gonna be this girl's company? Where you said, look at what happened with Tiger Woods. Let me tell you something. Tiger Woods, in part, went that route. A lot of us share responsibility in that and where we put him. And how he felt he was untouchable, or how he had to be in a bubble and had to operate, try to circumvent or maneuver his way around things because he had no life because he was Tiger Woods.
Okay,
Let's keep all of those things in
argument. But Tiger went to Stanford for what 2 or 3 years?
I'm just saying that when you're young,
he started later.
When you're young, you can get devoured.
Okay.
When you're young and alone, you can get devoured. That's all I'm saying.
But the point of LeBron was at age 18, he went to Sacramento and played his first NBA game. What do you have, 25? I mean, that's as staggering to me as Lucy Lee.
I'm not talking about his ability. I'm talking about the fact that he had company. Okay. There were younger people around his age group in that level.
But they weren't playing in the NBA at that time. I mean, he was alone as an 18-year-old.
But Skip, if you're 18 and the guy in the league is 20, he ain't too far removed. You got company.
Okay. I know you don't follow women's golf closely, but Lexi Thompson, who just won the year's first major on the LPGA Tour, she qualified for the U.S. Open. I think she was age 12 and 4 months. Mm-hmm. She's been just fine, right on up the ladder. But her parents handled her correctly. It's how hard you push from this point forward that is critical to the growth.
Well, that's your point. You're saying you hope that she
goes a one-shot deal.
Does this now and goes back and does something differently. Goes back to her childhood.
Again, if she does qualify for the U.S. Open, as your parent, could you tell her you can't go?
No.
Come on.
Hey, Kerry.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Kerry, I hope that she performs well this weekend.
Yeah.
And then it's a success story if she performs well, and then we leave her alone.
Leave her alone.
Fine.
Okay.
But are we going to leave her alone?
Yeah. No, that's
Are we going to leave her alone?
Let's hope. This just in, the U.S. Patent Office on Wednesday ruled that the Washington Redskins nickname is disparaging of Native Americans and canceled the team's trademarks. The ruling means that 6 different trademarks using the word Redskin would no longer belong exclusively to the team and opens the possibility that other parties can use and profit from the name on items such as merchandise. It does not legally force, however, the team to change its name. Wednesday's ruling basically says that it was similar to the one in 1999, which was later overturned by a court on a technicality. The team will retain its trademarks during any appeal of this new decision. Stephen A., a lot to adjust in a short period of time. Your reaction, however?
Well, I think this is the first step in what will inevitably be the changing of the Redskins name as far as I'm concerned. I think there's going to be a groundswell of momentum that we continue to witness before our very eyes, and ultimately Daniel Snyder, no matter how dogmatic and, determined he is in keeping the name, I think ultimately he's going to find himself in a position where he's standing on an island all by himself, and it's going to be too uncomfortable to overcome. Again, I think that one of the mistakes that I do think people have made, however, and I won't deny the fact that Daniel Snyder to some degree has contributed to this, but I do believe one of the mistakes that people have made is like blaming him for it. This is a man that purchased the Redskins, that bought them for over $800 million, that it's a business. And, obviously the Redskins name and namesake had existed long before he ever arrived. And the groundswell of momentum wasn't prevalent at that particular moment in time. So I never blamed him per se for being an individual that wanted to hold on to the Redskins name. It's just that over time, he became a bit dismissive with some of his public sentiments, and I think that contributed to the momentum that is now clearly aimed against him. And when you have lawmakers on Capitol Hill doing it, and you have the United States Patent and Trademark Office now essentially officially against him, no matter which way you slice it, I think it's the beginning steps of an ultimate change in the Redskins name.
I agree with you. Beginning of the end of the use of the nickname Redskins. This was the first major official blow to using that nickname. A blow to the Redskins and to the National Football League. And I remind you, Stephen A., just in the last month, we've had several NFL officials support Dan Snyder for his dug-in stance that he wants to continue to use the nickname Redskins. The best reaction I've seen so far, the best insight, was from ESPN's Darren Ravel, who reported that, remember, the NFL splits revenue from team merchandise sales 31 different ways because the Cowboys have their own deal. I'm still not sure how Jerry Jones pulled that off, but he pulled it off. So the revenue is split 31 ways. And if the Redskins start losing money from losing their trademarks, then everybody, the other 30 teams that revenue share, will lose money. And all of a sudden, we put this in a whole different perspective because the NFL as a group will lose money because of what's happening with the nickname Redskins. So I think this, to me, again, maybe a lot of this is over my head, I'll be the first to admit, but it feels like the beginning of the end of the nickname Redskins.
Well, I mean, listen, based on what's transpiring before our very eyes, it needs to be. I mean, again, if it has been determined that this indeed is an ethnic, racial slur, whatever way you want to say it, it can't be ignored any longer. You can't have a billionaire owner associated with the National Football League, a league that, by the way, has taken stances against several things, including anybody that's homophobic or anything like that. We know how the league has responded to that as well. And so, you're not going to be able to ignore it or skirt around this. There's just no way that it's going to happen. It is what it is. And what Daniel Snyder needs to be in the process of doing is figuring out a way to change the name to something that will be just as popular as the Redskins and ultimately just as profitable.
Both you gentlemen,
and less offensive, of course.
You agree that this is the beginning of the process to change the name. Let's just be clear once again, the decision does not mean that they are required to change their name. Spurs backup point guard Patty Mills is a free agent, and after his postseason performance, obviously there will be a lot of suitors. The Knicks happen to be in the market for a new starting point guard, and according to the New York Post, Mills would definitely be interested in playing in the big city. We apparently know that, Stephen A. Your take rather, where do you think he ends up?
I have no idea where he'll end up right now. I know that Philadelphia will be a target because they could use somebody like him and Coach Brown used to coach under Popovich. I know Budenholzer in Atlanta would consider it because he's also a protege of Greg Popovich. And obviously, you know, they try to keep things within the family. And Patty Mills knows that if he's not going to be with Popovich, he wants to be someplace else where he knows he'll be taken care of because of the system that they have in place, the leadership, etc. I'm of the mindset, however, when I look at the New York Knicks, I like Patty Mills. I like his energy. I love the fact that he can shoot. I definitely think he'd be an upgrade from a Raymond Felton. But the one thing that I would caution everybody, when we look at Patty Mills, a lot of people look at him and they think that he could play that way if he were to be logging exorbitant minutes. I tell him to be careful of that. He plays with a lot of energy, but he gets away with an awful lot. He bodies guys up. He puts their hands on them. He draws offensive fouls. But I think that the more he plays, the more he could potentially get exposed. And I think that that's what – there's no question that he could shoot. And there's a place for him in any lineup in the league because he can shoot the basketball. And pressure doesn't faze him. He'll put the ball up, and it'll go in. But if he goes someplace else where they're paying him money and they're elevating his level of playing time, now you have to run an offense because, remember, most teams don't share the ball as adroitly as the Spurs do. So you're going to find the ball in your hands more. You're going to find yourself having to dribble and handle the ball a little bit more. And you're not going to have a Tim Duncan to throw it to in the low post or some of the other players that you had on the bench with you coming into the game with you. That's the issue, and that's going to be the challenge for Patty Mills. So even though I like him and I want him to get his money because I think he earned it, I would advise caution when it comes to him because he looks a hell of a lot better on the Spurs than I think he'll look at other places.
And you want him there.
Thank you.
Keep him.
Thank you. Thank you. I love what you just said. It was basketball wisdom emanating from Stephen Naismith, who invented the game of basketball. Thank you for that wisdom, and I hope the NBA is listening to you because I need Patty, who became my favorite Spur, to stay in San Antonio. And on Monday's show, Danny Green joined us, and he said that his gut feeling was that Patty was leaning towards staying because clearly he loves being a San Antonio Spur, living in San Antonio, playing for Greg Popovich. Now, here's the irony of what you're talking about, and this is where I do agree with you. There was one guy who didn't fit in the San Antonio system. There's one guy who doesn't share the ball. It's this guy. Patty Mills came off the bench as a no-conscience gunner. I mean, there's no more fearless shooter in the league. Nobody had a greener light than Patty Mills coming off the bench. He's not sharing the ball. He's shooting the ball at will. It's like, no, Patty, no. Oh, he made another one. And Stephen A., you know I watched every Spurs game. I am here to tell you that the single biggest reason the Spurs had, by 5 games, the best road record in the National Basketball Association was Patty Mills. The big three missed so many games. Kawhi missed so many games. Patty Mills didn't miss many shots. Do you realize that 13 of his 14 highest scoring games came on the road? Just real quickly, some of those games, 32 points, 29, 26, 25, 23, 21, 20 on the road. Fourth quarters on the road. Listen to this, Stephen A. 18 in the fourth at Charlotte. This is like LeBron going off kind of numbers. 16 in the fourth quarter at the Clippers. 13 in the fourth quarter at Portland. 11 in the fourth quarter at the Knicks. This is Patty Mills. He would just come in and say, give me the ball and get out of my way. This is not Spurs basketball. They needed him to save the night after night after night, and he saved it. Could he do it for your Knicks as a starting point guard? I don't think so. He's like 6 feet tall at the tallest. Last year, he was derisively nicknamed, even though they loved him. They called him Fatty Mills because he was so overweight. He got right in the offseason. He completely remolded his body. Did he not look athletic and quick? He's the fastest Spur. He doesn't play great defense. He just irritates people with his energy on defense. But he fits the Spurs way better than he would fit your Knicks.
You are so biased, you know that right now. I mean, this is not speaking objectively.
No, but it was the truth.
At Tuesday's Packers minicamp, head coach Mike McCarthy said that Aaron Rodgers is having his best spring yet. This assessment comes in the wake of Rodgers, who's always been guarded about his private life, essentially saying that he's learned to embrace the spotlight both on and off of the field. We're putting Rodgers on the couch. Skip Bayless, do you like what appears to be a new Aaron Rodgers?
Stephen A. Smith. He's your guy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I must admit, I really do like what I'm hearing from this new Aaron Rodgers. I have criticized him before on this show for being a little too defensive, a little too thin-skinned with the media. But I really like what I'm hearing, and I like the choice he made with his new squeeze.
Is that fair? Squeeze from the newsroom, Olivia Munn.
Olivia Munn, who's born and raised in my hometown of Oklahoma City. So great choice, Aaron.
Olivia Munn.
Check her out.
Do you watch Newsroom?
Oh, I definitely will. How do you spell that last name? How do you spell that last name?
M-U-N-N. Olivia Munn.
Got it.
Yep.
On Go Google.
Ahead.
He's Googling.
Google. Keep going. So we're running out of show. So you're going to have to talk if you're going to talk about your guy, Aaron Rodgers.
All I know is this. He was already a bad man. Mm-hmm. The best quarterback in football. Anything that lends itself towards him receiving more praise, more acclaim, more accolades, I am not opposed with. In terms of being the total package as a quarterback, I will acknowledge to you if there's one slight Achilles heel, it could be his ability to lead men around him, to galvanize the troops, okay?
I agree.
So if you're talking about his personality, as far as I'm concerned, that's his only weakness. Because that arm is something spectacular. That athleticism to go with it is undeniable. To me, talent-wise, he is the best quarterback in football. And if he becomes a great leader, it's over.
Okay, but I must say, just for the record, since you called him the best quarterback, Olivia Munn is no Giselle. So in that department, Brady still has him by a little bit.
No, because you said you don't find Giselle that attractive.
But he's the one who raised up Giselle.
We revisit this tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. You can catch First Take Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific on ESPN2.
ESPN Radio.
With the action on the court, the diamond, or the gridiron.
Comes alive.
The NBA.
The San Antonio Spurs are the world champions.
Major League Baseball.
The Boston Red Sox have won the World Series.
The new college football playoff.
The Seminoles have completed the perfect season.
Your home for the best in sports play-by-play.
ESPN Radio.
Someday, people will say, I knew Ty, Ryan, Chase, Dylan when he was kart racing in 38th place. Someday, people will say, he's on a roll, on fire. Someday, people will shake their heads and say, man, that kid sure did grow up fast. Names are made here. The Gardner Denver 200 at Road America. Saturday at 2:30 Eastern on ABC. Fired up by Johnsonville.